we go. Originally, last month, we voted on the K through 5 series, and that went through. I think that there has been some discussion because we held off on doing anything with 6 through 12. But the main concern, it seems to be, is with the textbooks from 9 to 12. So, I guess what we'll do, with your permission, is split that into 2 categories. Is that what you guys are thinking? And do the 6 through 8 and the 9 through 12? Is there any opposition to that?
I don't have the opposition. I think we have to just like to discuss, if we're going to do that, I'd like to discuss each one before we do.
The 6 through 8, okay? Let's discuss it. I could have do we need a motion yet, or usually what we do is we split it up, if we're going to do that, and then we have a motion and a second, then we discuss it, and then we vote on it. That's the process. So instead of doing that, you want to do that? Is that what you want to do?
I mean, that's Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes,
We
it is.
We have a motion, a second, and then we have a discussion.
That's right.
And it either happens or doesn't happen.
That's right.
And then we vote.
Okay,
So
so I make a
instead of
motion.
discussing first, it would probably be a good idea to do it that way.
So I make a motion that we
So-
discuss the 6 through 8 textbook.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded that we take a vote on 6 through 8, but before we do, any discussion?
Yes. Mrs. Temple. She knows about it.
Yeah.
No, she's not expecting.
Mrs. Temple, I wanted to mention you because you were the first one to speak. And I remember you were Katarina's teacher as Mrs. Roebuck. Oh, that was your sister. Pardon me.
Two of them.
Hold on. You mentioned that we should trust you as teachers, and I think we do. You mentioned that you don't have a hidden agenda, and I don't think any of us up here believe that any of you teachers that we know personally have a hidden agenda. I cannot say the same thing for the curriculum providing companies. I believe they do have a hidden agenda. So the curriculum is, we're talking about splitting up 6 through 8 and then 9 through 12. And I had started going through the 6 through 8 because I wanted to start at 6th grade and just work my way all the way through. And I want to commend all of the teachers for what you have to go through with the curriculum and teaching these children. I also don't think it needs to be that difficult. For instance, there was an example given in grade 9 for students to underline examples of word gaps. And the example was given out of an opinionated write-up, and it goes as stated here. America is an improbable idea, a mongrel nation built of ever-changing disparate parts, held together by a notion, the notion that all men are created equal, though everyone knows that most men consider themselves better than someone. In my mind, that is subliminal indoctrination, already telling children what to believe. I don't think for a second that y'all would teach that in that way, but there are many children in schools that are impressionable and they believe what they read, and that concerns me. Another in grade 9, it'll be the last one I'll look at here, was another opinionated piece that was written, and it goes as this. In our digital age, the selfie is the best way to express oneself, empower oneself, and even surround oneself with friends. Everyone everywhere owns and uses a smartphone. And with at least 1 million different social media platforms available, you'd have to live in a cave not to take part in and appreciate this form of communication. Sure, there are critics who say that selfies are taken only by narcissists craving attention. Those critics really do live in caves, and they certainly have no friends. I promise you that my 3 sons will not have a smartphone before they're 18 years old. And I wish that my daughter, who's 21, didn't get one when she was 15. This is telling children that selfies are the way to go. And I have seen selfie pictures that are unacceptable on children's phones. It goes on to say, selfies empower us because they fulfill our need for validation from friends, family, and the rest of the world. If you don't believe it, try it. Science has shown, once again, that taking selfies makes you more confident, especially kids. We all know it. Some people are not allowed to say positive things about themselves because other people will say that they are full of themselves. But a selfie photo, so it's acceptable for those people to show what they're proud of. This is subliminal indoctrination. This is telling kids what to think, and tell them how to think. I can't agree with it. I can't vote for this and accept it as being okay. I don't believe it's the school's responsibility to provide every opportunity, every moment of anything that they'll come into contact with. I don't think that's the school's responsibility to provide that while these children are in school. Schools provide them for reading, writing, and arithmetic, prepare them for the real world. Whatever they learn outside of school, that's up to the child and parents. I'm not telling you what you can or can't teach your child at your house. We're not censoring books. If you want your child to read a pornographic magazine at your home, that's the parent's right. I'm 100% against it. But I'm not there to tell your children what to do in your house. School's a different place. School's for reading and writing and arithmetic. Science, history, whatever else I want to add on there. So back to my first point, Mrs. Temple, I do 100% believe that teachers in Madison County schools do not have a hidden agenda. I'm more concerned with the hidden agendas that are with the publishing companies that put this information out. And I've got so many notes here. I don't want to take too much time to go through here, but there was a lady that mentioned that the curriculum is adopted by VDOE. Yes, it was. It was accepted, it was approved by VDOE under Northam's administration. And Northam was the one that told parents that you had no say in your child's education in schools. And I don't think that's true. I think we would have a much better outcome in schools if the parents and the teachers were all on the same page and worked together. I know that's not the case all the time. And I know y'all try extra hard to work with the parents, and some parents are, they're just not easy to work with. I might be one of them. But needless to say, there's too much questionable stuff in here that doesn't actually teach children anything. It tells them something new to think, and it guides them in a direction away from, as Mr. Graham Davison mentioned, away from morality. Thank you.
Other comments?
I just want to. My wife told me today that she was at the pool and a friend said to her, "Your husband really kicked a hornet's nest with this stuff." And it's certainly never my intent, but there's certainly been a lot of churn, and I'm not on social media, but people tell me there's a lot of churn on social media. So I just want to take the time to say clearly what I object to in these texts, what I don't object to in these texts. So I have a couple pages, if I can.
Are these about 6 to 8?
It's kind of both, because they kind of go together. So I'll do a discussion of both, and we can kind of look at that if that's all right. When we asked for the delay last time, some couldn't understand why we needed time after the superintendent's recommendation One online paper declared the school board's approval of textbooks was a pro forma or rubber stamp process. That could not be more wrong in my estimation. We as a board have a serious responsibility to ensure that what our children serves to educate, not indoctrinate, that textbooks respect families and citizens who pay for these books, and that they help teachers do their difficult job of teaching fairly and well. Somebody else said, well, textbooks are the textbooks, and this one was highly recommended by national level educational people. To be honest, that worries me, because it's not our teachers and leaders and administrators here in Madison that I'm worried about. They are neighbors, they are friends, they are fellow parishioners, they are good people I know. Ms. Stemple, I fully trust you 100%. I echo what Mr. Sheed said. It's not the trust is not about the teachers here, it's the trust is the national textbook companies and the national educational establishment. I just want to remind us of what the national, not talking about teachers here, but the national educational establishment's track record has been recently. Think about this a little bit. Remember, it's a national establishment that closed schools probably unnecessarily for 2 years after a pandemic. It was a national educational establishment that required 5-year-olds to be masked for almost 2 years. Despite most other countries not doing that, most people with common sense knew that wasn't the right thing to do, but the national educational establishment wanted to do that. It's the national educational establishment that is sometimes recommending sexually explicit stuff. It's got a radical woke intent rather than focusing on the basics of education. It's a national educational establishment that still believes that they know better than what parents for their children. That's just not the case. Parents know their children best and know how to educate their children best. I believe that 100%. So I was grateful for the delay. I think it was a good delay to look at what was going on. I appreciate, I looked at every single selection, 6 to 12. My wife was mad at me for taking all this time. So I commend the teachers and the administrators who did all that stuff. It's a painful process for sure, 100%. And so I did want to take the time just to report on what I found in this. And so first, I think the textbooks are well put together. They're attractive, they're user-friendly, they're well organized, I think. They contain many great authors. They have Dickens and Poe and Dickinson and Whitman and Shakespeare. The teach resources appear strong, and I like the flexibility they offer. I also appreciate the focus on vocabulary and grammar that are offered in these books. I can understand why the teachers and administrators like these. There's a lot going for these books. However, I think there's real content issues in the textbooks, and that's why I object to some of them. To be honest, my objections are not particularly for the 6th through 8th. I really didn't find much objectionable. I don't trust the company, but there's not a lot in the 6th through 8th that I object to, and I would defer to the teachers in that because I don't find things objectionable in there. I think the company should be watched, but I think we can do that, and so I don't really object to the 6th through 8th, to be honest. The 9 through 12 is a different story. I do object to them. Some people say, well, there's only a few, and that's true. Most of them I don't object to. I don't object to the 90% of them. There's about 10% that I do. 10% of over 240 selections is a lot of things that I don't want my child to read, or be biased to have a biased reading. And so that's still a lot of selections, I think. My glasses on. Sorry. The content concerns me for 2 reasons. They contradict 2 principles that I believe Madison County voters care deeply about. I think we heard tonight. I ran on those 2 things because of that. I was very clear about that. The first is the need for absolute respect by the school for families, parental rights, and the importance of respecting religious faith. Multiple selections in the high school text fail to meet this goal, I think. I won't talk about all of them. The school board's seen the list that I object to. Superintendent Graham has seen it. I'm sure the teachers have seen that. Lots of people have seen it, so I don't want to go into a lot of it, but I do want to talk about a couple real quick. For instance, short story, a story of an hour. Kind of well-known story. Doesn't mean it's great for children, I don't think. It tells the story of a young wife who's told her husband is dead in an accident. Instead of mourning for him, she exults in her freedom from him. She whispers, quote, free, 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 because he's dead. When she finds out he's actually alive, instead of rejoicing her husband is alive, she dies, seemingly out of shock that she won't now be free from her husband. Is that a good lesson on marriage to teach our children? Another example, one more from this section. Margaret Atwood, who's a self-described kind of eco-feminist, which her words, and author of the pro-abortion rights Handmaid's Tale, who equates in her short story, Bat's life, the job of a housewife to latrine cleaners and ditch diggers in terms of job desirability. In the same story, she talks about bats praying to some Jesus-type bat figure in a prayer that I take to be mocking the Christians' Lord's Prayer. Is that what we want our children to think of mothers who are housewives as being socially undesirable? Certainly my wife is a housewife. I don't want people thinking of her, my children thinking of her that way. Or to hear the most fundamental Christian prayer to be mocked in this way. Of course we don't. So why would we subject our children to these stories? The second principle I ran on was the need to promote love of country in our children. Last year, a Gallup poll found that 20% of young people aged 18 to 29 are extremely proud to be an American. Only 1 out of 5 young Americans are very proud of our country. That should set off alarm bells in our head. These texts, I believe, are part of the problem. Many of the modern selections in it, the 10% I'm talking about, promote, I think, a globalist perspective that fails to see the United States as an exceptional country, and they focus primarily on the evils of America. A couple quotes. Actually, Charlie quoted one, I won't re-quote it, about the mongrel nation piece and about how evil, there are many evils in America, which again is true. Of course there are evils in America. The question is, where's the counterbalance that says how great America is? And that's lacking in these texts, in my opinion. The second quote, kind of a long quote from Martin Luther King's speech, an anti-war speech on the Vietnam War, 1967. I won't read the whole quote. You can read it. It's a long quote about what the American soldiers did in terms of children are here raping and killing and things like that in Vietnam. And he, one short quote, he claims the American government is the greatest, quote, the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. The greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. This is 1967, the time when the Soviet Union is killing millions of people around the world. But America is the greatest purveyor of violence. Is that what we want our children to think about our country? I don't think Madison taxpayers and citizens want that one-sided bias without at least some nuance about the devastating evils of communism that our nation was trying to stop, which are not there. Many say that diverse opinions are good for children to read and it can promote critical thinking and obvious good. I fully accept that. I embrace it. I am not looking for a conservative or religious curriculum, as some have alleged. Some, Mr. Ballard, I think, several people talked about the need for diversity. I 100% agree. It's good for children to read diverse texts. What is lacking, I think, in these texts is, in modern writers, is diversity of thought. There's a tendency to be progressive, liberal again and again and again on these modern writers, and that's what I object to. I think it's great. Let's have writers, let's have conservative writers in there for that kind of diversity. That's what I think we ought to have. So I do not object at all to the diversity. I'm not looking for a religious curriculum, as some say. I don't expect to be a fan of 100% of selections in any textbook, but I am looking for that kind of diversity. I was struck when I read through all these things that nearly every modern writer is known for liberal viewpoints, and their writings reflect that. The text contain writings by Bill Clinton, liberal icon Robert F. Kennedy, the very liberal Supreme Court Judge Justice Brennan, the New York Times columnist Gail Collins, Anna Quinlan, Kofi Annan of the United Nations, lots of liberal social activists, and then self-described eco-feminist writers like Margaret Atwood. Where are the corresponding selections by less liberal writers? Nowhere to be found. It's getting long, but I want to say this last one more page. So think about this. Think about the goodness of what we could have. Clinton's included speech, a useful speech, is included after the Oklahoma City bombing. Would be so much more interesting if paired with George Bush's speech after 9/11. But the Bush speech is missing. The liberal court decision to allow the burning of our flag included in these texts, which is good, would be so much more interesting if paired with, say, a conservative Justice Scalia's monumental opinion recognizing the individual right to bear arms. The conservative Scalia is, of course, missing. The included story that denigrates marriage that I quoted would be made much better if it was also included was O. Henry's Gift of the Magi, where a young married couple learn about the noble sacrificial love found in marriage. That too is missing. The insult piled on American soldiers in Reverend King's speech in these texts is a legitimate voice. We should read it. But it'd be much more interesting if paired with, say, Dwight Eisenhower's essay on American soldiers' sacrifice for a noble cause on the eve of D-Day. Guess what? Eisenhower is missing from these texts. How about alongside Atwood's insulting story that mocks religious faith, how about adding something by C.S. Lewis on the virtues of faith, hope, and charity for students? Again, missing. There's an essay called Is Survival Selfish? That questions how heroic self-sacrificial acts really are. Not sure that's the greatest thing to teach children that want to be courageous, but okay. But how about alongside that, We include an excerpt from Unbroken, that great story where the heroic Louis Zamperini sacrifices greatly for his country and his faith. There's a movie out about it. Guess what? That's missing too. One more, how about? How about alongside the short story, The Ambush, which is in these texts, that kind of denigrates the purpose of American military members. The text included a magnificent, well-written short story on the first Black Medal of Honor winner, Sergeant William Carney, who carried the American flag after being badly wounded in a charge against a Southern fort, refusing to let the flag hit the ground because Sergeant Carney knew that fighting for the flag was a noble endeavor. Nope. We have the degrading of the American soldier here, but no heroic Sergeant Carney. I think that's wrong. How can anyone justify this one-sided approach and always on the same partisan side? I can go on, but I'll spare you. I will remind the board that our current policy calls for teaching to be done in an unbiased manner. In my opinion, these textbooks fail in this regard. Because of that, these textbooks will make fair, unbiased teaching more difficult for our teachers. One last comment, I'll stop. In January, Governor Youngkin issued an order restricting the use of critical race theory in our public schools. I think we may be skating on thin ice with this order by adopting these textbooks. One of the lead advisors, in fact, the lead advisor, according to the textbook into literature, is an academic named Dr. Tyrone Howard. He's deeply involved with promoting critical race theory. In fact, he wrote the foreword to the 2019 book titled, again, critical race theory, a lot of people say, overblown, whatever. It's not my word. This is the title of the book that Dr. Howard, who is the lead advisor for this curriculum, titled Critical Race Theory in Teacher Education, Informing Classroom Culture and Practice, whose goal is, quote, to promote the widespread application of critical race theory to better prepare K-12 teachers to bring an asset-based approach to teaching. Not my words, the words of the book. It will be very surprising to me such passionate advocates of using critical race theory in our schools did not try to incorporate this in the resources provided to teachers and students through the digital components of this purchase. Is this really the company we want in charge of what Madison's children read? I think the worldview of this company and its advisors is clearly a better fit for California, New York, Loudoun County, Fairfax County than it is for Madison County. We can do far better for our students and families and community. Madison taxpayers work hard to buy these texts, and most Madison parents do not want their children to read works that are not respectful to religious faith, demean the bond between father, mother, and children, or focus overly on sexism or racism in our society. I think it's an insult to both taxpayers and parents to force such texts on their children. Somebody said of the teachers, they're the ones who use them. Remember, children are the ones who read them. And I absolutely understand teachers and wanting to be trusted, and I trust Madison teachers, but ultimately our responsibility is those children who read the things. And so I recommend that we disapprove the recommendation of these high school texts for 9 to 12. I think we can do a better textbook for our students for this year.
We have a motion on the floor. Our motion on the floor has to do with 6 through 8. Is that what you clearly understand, everybody? 6 through 8. And a lot of the things that were said have to do with 9 through 12. So my question to you is, when it's on the floor, we have to vote on 6 through 8. Are we ready to do that now? Has everybody said what they want to say? Am I wrong? It's to what? Discuss it. Okay. So are we ready to move forward from discussing it to voting on it? Ready? And if so, could I have a motion to either approve or disapprove the 6 through 8 series?
I'll make a motion to approve the HMH textbook for grades 6 through 8 as presented.
Do I have a second?
Kind of hurts my heart to do this because I don't trust the company, but out of respect for the teachers, and I don't think the curriculum is bad, I will second the motion to approve the 6 through 8 curriculum. I will.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the HMH 6 through 8 series, 6 through 8 adoption. making my way through that one. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And the 6 through 8 curriculum has been approved. Now we go on to the 9 through 12. Could I have a motion on the floor? Could I have a motion on the floor to approve or not approve the 9 through 12 HMH curriculum?
I make a motion to not approve the HMH curriculum 9 through 12.
Could I have a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Now's the time for discussion. Is there any further discussion that anybody wants to make? I do have something to say, but I can wait.
Just one quick thing, as I read through the curriculum 9 through 12, I really felt like I was reading the curriculum to build social activists. That's what I got from the curriculum, and it troubled me.
I'll go next. Honestly, here's a couple of things that I just want to say that have nothing to do with the curriculum. I don't know why so many people were here tonight that voiced their opinion that we did not have God in our schools. You're looking at 5 people sitting up here. 5 people that pray every single day. And it takes place in our classrooms and in our schools every single day. We don't teach religion, but we pray. We pray when we send our kids home at the end of the day, hoping that they'll have a good time when they get home, and that when their parents talk to them, their parents have positive